Baboon TV presents 14 Haunted Hotels. Number 14. If you're looking for some paranormal activity but don't want to see the traditional ghost rattling chains about in a dungeon, then book a room at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Guests and hotel staff frequently report seeing a blonde woman, often staring at herself in the mirror, or singing next to the hotel's poolside nightclub, Tropicana. That's right, the ghost of Marilyn Monroe has been reported here, especially in room 229, which used to be her favorite room. It has also been reported that guests have been able to hear music coming from room 928. This room was a former suite of Montgomery Clift, who stayed in the hotel while filming From Here to Eternity. It is said to be his trumpet that guests are hearing. Number 13. The Stanley Hotel was the inspiration behind the Overlook Hotel, the fictional building in Stephen King's novel The Shining. The founder of the hotel was also the inventor of the Stanley steamer automobiles, and the ghosts of Stanley and his wife are still seen around the hotel today. She is frequently heard playing on her piano in the music room, and they are also joined by former members of staff. Elizabeth Wilson was a former housekeeper who died in 1911 inside the hotel. Guests who stay in room 217 have said that their belongings have been unpacked and stored away in the room without doing it themselves or by a living housekeeper. The fourth floor is said to be haunted by children who are often heard running and giggling along the corridors. And for your comfort, the hotel plays The Shining on a loop on one of their channels. Number 12. Dating back to 1100, this is one of the oldest pubs in Wales, so naturally, it's the home of a number of ghosts. The first floor of the hotel used to be a court of law during the Welsh Revolt, and supposedly 180 people were sentenced to death in that very room. It's even worse when you discover that these 180 people were also hung inside the hotel. They were apparently hung from the oak beam over the staircase that leads to the courtroom, and even to this day there are markings that still exist on the wood, possibly from the rope. Guests have reported seeing the judge who sentenced all of these criminals to death roaming the corridors, and other unluckier guests have reported feeling a tightening sensation around their neck. Number 11. Steeped in rich history, the Bourbon Orleans Hotel is said to house a few resident ghosts. The hotel is home to a number of ghosts who come from different backgrounds and even time periods. Sightings have ranged from seeing someone dancing in the ballroom to a soldier who is said to frequent the corridors on the 3rd and 6th floors. The hotel used to be an orphanage, and unfortunately, what orphanage wasn't depressing, miserable, and neglectful? Guests have said that they have heard the cries of children as well as seeing a young girl throwing a ball and chasing it down the 6th floor corridor. Number 10. Despite this hotel having a sense of modernity and grandeur, it unfortunately is resting on a cliché. Not quite an Indio burial ground, but it was built over a former wartime political prison. People were tortured and murdered in the prison, and the hotel is said to be haunted by its former inmates. The hotel isn't taking any chances of poltergeist activity, and even has a Chinese sutra and sacred scrolls placed throughout the lobby in an attempt to eradicate the presence of evil spirits. Throughout the hotel, guests have reported sightings of a maid disappearing between walls and locked doors, the sound of children giggling in the corridors, and a woman knitting in a chair. One of the most distressing reports have been made by a woman who woke up in the middle of the night to see pressure on her friend's cheek, as though someone was pushing down on her face. This disappeared when she called for help. Number 9. It is said that paranormal experiences can escalate quickly in this Italian hotel. Legend has it that Benito Mussolini once stayed in the fresco room, and it is in this room that guests complain of the sensation that they are being watched. This is often followed by a drought of ice-cold breath breathing onto their faces. Numerous people have felt the sensation, and they have also witnessed a pink lady wandering around this room. Number 8. The manager of the hotel, Olga Henry, used to be skeptical about the idea of the supernatural. She's since changed her mind after working here. The castle was built in 1625 by James Shaw, but the hotel is famous for the ghost of his wife, Lady Isabella Shaw. Isabella was locked into a room by her husband, and she gave birth to a daughter. James, of course, was desperate for a son as an heir. As punishment, he confined his wife into a small room where she starved. She died by falling out of a window as she tried to escape. Her ghost is said to be maleficent, scaring guests by making loud noises, knocking on their doors during the night, and even watching them as they sleep. The room that she was confined to is known as the Ghost Room, and is even meant to be rented out to guests under any circumstances. You can visit the room if you're brave enough, but guests who have spent the night in rooms near this area have fled in fear during the night. The building has hidden passages, trapdoors, and even a functional crematorium for its victims. There was also airtight rooms that acted like gas chambers and had even burned some of his victims to death by having metal walls and flamethrowers put in. But Mudgett wasn't an idiot, especially when it came to the construction side of things. He fired every single builder and engineer who ever worked on the hotel before it was completed so that no one knew the layout and structure of the hotel. And basically, no one asked him why he needed a lye pit in the basement. Once the hotel opened, his victims were usually blonde and female, although he did also enjoy killing men and children. He dissected many after they were dead, and he sold their skeletons to medical schools. Crime did pay for a while. However, he was eventually caught and charged with the deaths of 27 people, but he may have killed hundreds over the 4-year period. It isn't known for sure. The hotel mysteriously burned down shortly after his arrest when police discovered what he had been hiding in the basement and on the upper floors. Number 7. Is this the most haunted hotel in London? Apparently. Langham Hotel opened in 1885 and it has been the host of a lot of famous people, as well as some murderers. The common sighting is that of a man standing in room 333 dressed in Victorian clothing. This room is said to be the most haunted in the hotel. There have been a lot of deaths throughout the years that the hotel has been open, and they've all been exceptionally violent. One man killed his wife on their honeymoon and then committed suicide afterwards. A German prince also took his own life just before the outbreak of World War I by jumping out of a window, and apparently the ghost of Napoleon III haunts the basement of the hotel. He spent some of exile in Langham, and it turns out he might not have left. Number 6. If you're wanting to do some paranormal investigations of your own, be sure to request spending the night in room 8, as it's apparently the most haunted room in the hotel. Located in the Rocks, the district used to be rife with prostitutes, alcohol-induced murders, and it was a constant haunt for sailors looking for some trouble, or someone to spend the night with. Room 8 is said to still house the ghost of a sailor who has been known to stand and stare at you from across the room, especially at night. Staff also constantly hear footsteps in areas of the hotel that they know are empty and often complain of negative vibes from certain rooms. Number 5. This lavish former country home is haunted by the ghost of a peasant boy who fell in love with the Baron's daughter. The Baron, a rich and unforgiving man, forced her daughter into an arranged marriage with someone of her own social status. The boy, who was hopelessly in love with the daughter, killed himself in the house on the morning of her wedding. He hung himself in room 324. Staff and guests have been unable to explain footsteps that they hear behind them in empty corridors, and there are doors and windows that close by themselves. Number 4. What couldn't be scary about a prison-themed hotel? Well, this hotel has been converted into a prison in the 20th century and was used by Nazi and Soviet soldiers. The amount of people who died here is staggering. Before the majority of them were shot, they were tortured mercilessly. During the Second World War, Nazi soldiers kept Latvian prisoners here, and in one of the rooms that was used for solitary confinement are the words "Izeha no Eyes." This translates as "exit from hell." Staff indulge guests about strange occurrences that have happened in the hotel, such as light bulbs being unscrewed from their sockets, doors opening by their own accord, and even the sound of chains being heard from the depths of the shadows. Guests have seen the ghost of a woman who hanged herself roaming in the corridors, and in case you're wondering, the staffs treat guests like prisoners. It's safe to say that this experience is not for everyone. Number 3. There have been over 3,000 paranormal reports from guests and visitors of this hotel. Is it just hysteria, or are they genuine? In the 32 rooms of this hotel, all of them have reported ghostly going-ons. But the most frequent and similar cases that are reported come from rooms 16 and 17. It is in these rooms that men have stood in the corners watching you as you sleep, and a young boy has been heard playing and knocking on all of the doors in this corridor. The most frightening story, however, was reported by 2 members of staff who were working along the corridor when they both saw the figure of a man walk straight through one of the hotel doors. The man then walked out from this room and began running towards them. The staff members, terrified, ran away from him, causing quite a commotion. But no one else has seen the man, and he couldn't be found, even after the whole building was searched. Number 2. Hold on to your butts for this one, people. The St. James Hotel was built in 1880, and the decor still holds a strong Victorian or Western theme. The St. James has seen a lot of violence, anger, and death, which can still be seen today by the 22 bullet holes that line the ceiling of the dining room. Mary Lambert, the wife of Hen Lambert, the original owner, is still to this day protecting her guests. You can smell her strong perfume when wandering along the corridors by yourself, and if you're sleeping in her old room, be sure to shut the window. If the window is left open, she will knock and tap until it is shut, and it's apparently her way of protecting guests from criminals lurking outside. Staff members have seen children disappear into the floor when playing with toys who they have mistaken for guests. However, it's the card player T. James Wright who you need to look out for. He is angry, malicious, and dangerous. His spirit is said to still haunt room 18, where he was killed after he won a game of poker. Guests used to get bad vibes in this room, reported items going missing, lights going on and off, and some people were even pushed to the ground by some unknown force. He was determined to make his presence known. Number 1. Built in 1886, the Crescent Hotel and Spa was a luxury retreat for the rich and famous. The hotel cost $294,000 to build, an obscene amount of money for the time, and it quickly fell into despair. In 1908, it reopened as the Crescent College Conservatory for Young Women. It shut down in 1924 and opened 6 years later as a junior college, which closed 4 years later. In 1937, a millionaire, Norman G. Baker, turned the place into a hospital and health resort. He would treat patients despite having no knowledge of medicine or any medical training. He claimed that he had a cure for cancer and would treat cancer patients at the resort. People died under his care. And in 1940, he was sentenced to prison for fraud as he was receiving a lot of money from the families of his patients who were being treated by him. What they didn't know is that he was also experimenting on bodies, both dead and alive. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos.